we didn't record it. Wah, wah, wah.
What I like about this conversation is it's alive. Whereas if it was all like rehearsed every beat, people would understand that it's a performance rather than a conversation. So this is a conversation. So I'm going to also share a recent personal example of boldly proclaiming my intentions and dreams. A little bit of backstory. So my business involves events. That's the primary way that I help thought leaders connect. We go to exotic locations. We went to the south of France, Nice, the south of France one year, went to Florence, Italy, and Sandra and I and some other people went to Mexico in February 2020, just before the coronavirus was officially seen as a problem, which was declared in the middle of March by President Trump. And I loved it. And I just love hosting events. And in February, I had all planned out my events for the year and where they were going to be. And it's really the engine for my business. And it's a really great component of helping thought leaders or helping the coaches that I train. And then the wheels came off middle of March. All events are canceled. Conventions are canceled. So Xander's speaking career and my business, which is event centered, was very problematic. And for about a month, I was really depressed and didn't have any wind in my sails. So I thought, okay, Aurora, stop that. You have to come up with a big, bold goal. And you know what? Surviving is not a big, bold goal, right? Like that, we want to be thriving. So I set myself a goal that I thought was a bit of a stretch goal given the pandemic, although I have done more than this before, and I just liked it. So I set the goal of 100K in 100 days. And I remind myself of my big bold goal all of the time. I have my bullseye, 100K in 100 days. So I'm not really that money motivated. So actually it was really helpful doing that. I noticed how I wasn't paying attention. So then I started paying attention because I've got this, and I've got something else on my fridge. And I started the challenge to myself on May the 30th. And because I was paying attention, I asked people for orders. You know what? When you ask people, you just never know what happens. So in 55 days, I had exceeded my goal of 100K in 100 days. And then it was interesting. The day that happened was like so rocky. It was like, yay, yay, I did it on top of the world, yay, yay, yay. And then it was like, what if I can't do it again? What if it was a fluke? What if that's all the revenue for the whole year? Oh, what if I announce this and then that's like a one-shot deal? Then I'll be embarrassed because I've been shooting videos, although I haven't released them yet. It's called Diary of a Determined Entrepreneur. And then part of that money actually came in through a grant that I had applied for like months earlier, and the government didn't hear back. So it's a 30-year loan and 3% interest. So basically a grant. And then I thought, well, I shouldn't count that. Maybe that, and I had this whole story. And then I'm like, no, I said 100K in 100 days. I didn't say how. And I really get annoyed when my clients go, yeah, they don't count things. It's like the person who's, in the middle of a flood on the top of the roof of his house praying for God to rescue him. I'm sure you've heard this fable, but it's a good one.
I love this one.
People come by in a row. Can we give you a lift? Oh, no, that's okay. God's going to save me. Somebody comes by in a canoe. Can we help you? No, God's going to save me. Some final person comes by in a powerboat. Can we help you? As he's like sinking. No, I prayed to God. God's going to save me. And then he drowns. And then the gates to heaven. I said, why didn't you save me? I said, what? You said no 3 times. I sent people to help you. So I thought, no, I'm going to count that. August 1st, I started another 100K in 100 days challenge. And all this money is pouring in, like from all kinds of random places. And I'm on track to do the 100Ks in 100 days again. But what I want to underscore, that is the really important point behind all of this, very important to me, but rambling to you perhaps. But the important point is that the second time I said, no, I'm going to do it again, I started asking better quality of questions. So instead of thinking, where can I pick up another $1,000 or $10,000 or $50,000 client, I started thinking, what businesses need what I have? And then I came up with a vision to create $10 million, be a catalyst for $10 million worth of value. And now I have an idea to launch a whole new company and raise $5 million for it. So there's also this other element that if you continue asking high quality questions, you will up your game because you will get answers if you don't wimp out. I almost wimped out there for a minute, but then I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And I'm finding like, oh, wow, probably I'll be announcing sometime that I did, instead of 100K in 100 days, maybe $1 million in 100 days. And it's really not about the money. The money is just a way of keeping score of the value add. So anyway, I wanted to share that personal goal setting story because that's happening right now.
And that's awesome. And congratulations, Aurora. That's I'm so excited for you. And it's funny, you were talking about asking for help and value. And there are two things that popped into my mind I wanted to share with you and the audience, which is there's a story. Tip O'Neill, who was the Speaker of the Congress, the House of Representatives for 30 years. I was from Boston. I grew up in Boston. And he was out at an event, and this woman came up and said, I didn't vote for you in the last election. And he said, why not? She said, you didn't ask. And I have found that I get so much more when I ask specific questions for the help that I need. Because if we have these big, bold intentions, these big dreams, rare is the person who can achieve it on their own. So you need to ask for help, but you need to ask specific questions, because if I just come to Aurora and go, Aurora, I need help with my business. Aurora really wants to help me, but she doesn't quite know what my request is. So she's not sure whether she can say yes, no, or I can do this part, but I can't do this part. And so I think that's an essential part of our big, bold intentions and goals, is to ask for help and make sure that your ask is specific, because people who like you want to help you. Strangers actually get excited and want to help you. And the other thing in talking about value is, if you have Lamborghini ideas, don't sell it at you-go prices.
Oh, amen.
I know the value of what I have. You set your intention in your pricing as that. If your dream is really big, if your dream is to make it to the Olympics, no matter what someone says, you go, I'm going to get there. And look, there was the story that they made a great movie of Eddie the Eagle, who said, I'm going to be in the Olympics. And the man was really not an athlete. But it's a great story and a great example of boldly proclaiming your intentions.
I really like what you're saying. I think this is super important for people to yellow highlight, because I think many people, they want X. Let's just put a number on it because that's easier to quantify. So they want a 7-figure business, but they think, who am I? Maybe I'm asking for too much. So then they settle on $500,000 or 250 or whatever. But then because they're only asking for 250, they only get 100.
Yeah.
And it's not true that it's easier to get 250 than $1 million. It's probably easier to get $1 million or build a $10 million business, because it forces you to think bigger. Because the question is not how can I get? The question is how can I create 10 times that value? And so God is not miserly, or the universe or the unified field or whatever word works best for the listeners, because I know people don't like the word God, but I'm okay with it. They niggle and they think, oh, I'll just ask for a penny. But meanwhile, they could have asked for a castle.
Let's look at, we can stick with cars, or we could stick with clothes. Okay, clothes are something that we all buy. Does the $20 pair of jeans that you might buy at Target really cost any more to make or any less to make than the $300 pair of jeans that you get from some high-end jean place? The production value is probably pretty close, and I'm talking about within probably 50 cents what the cost is. And yet the value of the $300 pair of jeans is seen as being more. We know of designer labels, and Armani suits are $5,000, and but it isn't like there's.
They actually are worth more, because we did this in my MBA. I'll have to look up the exact data. I think it was related to wine. And they studied the neurotransmitters and dopamine and the chemical reactions within people's bodies when they were told that they were having Chateauneuf de Pape
Right.
year $200 bottle versus a $5 bottle. And the pleasure that the $200 bottle stimulated, the pleasure that it actually gave, was significantly more, even if it was actually the $5 bottle. It switched. So there is value in it, in an experience delivered at a premium level, even if it only costs 50 cents more to make the whatever Calvin Klein.
And I'm sitting here, and I know we want to say, oh, in this book, I can't for life of me right now remember, but I read this book, and it was a food psychologist. And it was really interesting because they went into this college cafeteria and they had a sheet of brownies, and they put 1/3 on a paper plate, 1/3 one was on a napkin, 1/3 was on a paper plate, and 1/3 was on a china plate. And they labeled them just as a free brownie, just a brownie, and a gourmet brownie. From the same exact sheet. And the people who had the gourmet brownie rated it as being tastier, moister, whatever. There is exactly what you're talking about. That perceived value is there. So if we are having big, bold goals and the perceived value of our goal or our dream is seen as being really worthy.
Mm-hmm. It's like perception is reality.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
I just watched the movie this past weekend, Out for Blood in Silicon Valley. And it was telling the story of that woman, her name escapes me. But the good thing about spoken author is we get the general gist, and then in the book you can fill in, the data that's missing.
Are you talking about the woman who ran there?
I believe that's her name, yeah. And she was so passionate and so convicted that it was so important that people could have their blood test done with just a drop of blood. And she had a great story, and she was really convinced, although she crossed the line and is now facing criminal charges. But what is the value of a story that has a big, bold mission, that has a big vision to change the world? She raised $900 million. So the value of a passionately proclaimed vision that's purposeful and that will help people is about $900 million. So never mind $1 million message.
Yeah.
$900 million message.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's so much fun in going big, going bold. There's so much energy behind that when you have those moments where perhaps you aren't believing in yourself as much, right? Where the doubt starts to creep in. You frankly have so much momentum that it pushes you right past that. Mm. You're a perfect example. You're, oh my gosh, do I do this again? The momentum of what you had set out as a goal pushed you to say, not only am I going to do that, but now I'm going to do this even bigger thing.
Exactly. And I think what's cool about my 100K in 100 days goal, it's a short enough period of time to demonstrate something. So I always like to invite entrepreneurs to have quick, fast, short experiments. And an experiment is not a success or failure. It's just a result.
Yeah.
And faced with some proof, some evidence that I did it once, I'm like, okay, I can do it again. And who knows if I will or not, but I am going to boldly proclaim that as my intention. Let's ground this in a bit more data. I also want to just share about this company called Startup Genome. And researchers from Stanford and UC Berkeley basically analyzed the growth of 650 startups in 2011. And they found that those who had specific tangible goals and tracked and measured their results and their metrics and had mentors raised 7 times more money and had 3.5 times better growth. So again, another data point underscoring the value of a specific goal. They raised 7 times more money and 3.5 times more growth by having clear goals and then tracking and measuring their progress against those metrics.
Absolutely. And just think about it, Aurora. If you can clearly articulate what it is that you are doing, it's easier for people to understand. And I'm going to guess some of those startups were clearly able to articulate, and that's what makes them successful. Oh, I know what they're selling, therefore I know I want to buy that.
Yeah, they have to be clear and concise, that's for sure.
And I worked in the startup realm back in the early 2000s, and I worked for some companies that it took me about 10 minutes to explain what people were doing. Oh, here's what this company does. And it wasn't really clear. And surprisingly, those companies didn't really succeed because people weren't really clear about what they were selling.
Yeah, you got to have a clear, compelling message that's concise and that's engaging emotionally, which means a story. What myths do you think are out there that trip people up around goals, intentions, dreams? And do you want to differentiate, draw a distinction between a goal, an intention, and a dream?
I guess an intention is more of the idea. The goal is more of the specific, measurable, tangible result. And the dream is all of that plus the embracing of the unknown, that this idea is bigger than I can conceptualize right now, but I have an inkling that it's huge.
Yeah, I like that. I want to confess that for myself, while I know that goals are super useful and I do have goals and I write them down and I encourage my clients to have goals and write them down, I do have a little negative hook on goals because of past setting goals and completely missing them. And so I have a little charge around that. And I also like to invite people to have a massively transformative purpose. So for me, I'm really moved by Buckminster Fuller. So when I have the star be a massively transformative purpose that will help others or change the world for the better, that seems to dissipate this idea that I have that I might set a goal and fail. So I don't know how that resonates with you, but I do really like the concept of the massively transformative purpose.
I do like that. I think goals are good because they are waypoints on the road that we can strive for to make the bigger destination more manageable. And I'll give an example. And just as a warning to everyone, I will be talking about my marathoning all the time because it's really important, and it's incredibly transformative for me, that whole process of running marathons. I've run 4 in my life, and 26.2 miles that's a really long way to cover. And in order to mentally be able to get through that, I had waypoints. My first waypoint was 13.1 miles. Let me make it to the half marathon. Now, everything else I'm now counting down to where I need to go. The next one was mile 17, because now I only have single digit numbers left. Then mile 20, because I make it to mile 20, I only have 6.2 miles left. That's a 10K. If I made it this far, I can make it. And then I get to count down each of the miles from 20 down to 26 or up to 26 of finishing that goal. And it made it, when I did that, it took this really huge, very hard, how am I going to do it? It made it so much easier because I had those waypoints. I just need to make it to here. Oh, I've made it there. Now I need to get to here. And that may be, I get your stickiness around goals, but I think when we have big, bold dreams and goals, when we're on an epic journey, then we need to have some points along the way that we can be aiming for, because otherwise it seems so far away and so nebulous.
Yeah, like bite by bite, you can eat the elephant. I want to share
Exactly.
something that about Jeff Bezos, who I believe is the richest man alive, although it
I
seems
believe so,
change
yes.
daily. So I think we can take some advice about business from Jeff Bezos. I wrote about this in my book, Thought Leader Launch: 7 Ways to Make 7 Figures with Your $1 Million Message.